Former CIA operative and author of Tan's Directive, Wayne Simmons. Wayne, nice to see you this morning. Welcome to Fox and Friends.
First of all, I don't believe that enhanced interrogation, as you know, I think both of you know my position on that. Enhanced interrogation that we use is not torture. Waterboarding is not torture. It's simply a technique used to gain valuable information.
This guy was on Fox News, seen around the world for 13 years. And he was touted as Fox News' CIA counterterrorism, Islamic extremism expert. 13 years. CIA people saw him all over the world. Not a peep. Nobody ever said a word. After he's arrested, many CIA people came to me and said, oh, yeah, I had questions about him from the beginning. Bottom line is, nobody said anything, nobody did anything except me.
That was ex-CIA officer Kent Clizbe talking about a popular Fox News contributor, Wayne Simmons, who claimed to be a former CIA operative, but who Kent helped expose as a serial liar and fraud. A 2016 New York Times article covered how Wayne Simmons was exposed. On Kent's site, he references that article, writing, "The shocking story of how Kent uncovered and brought down an in-your-face fraudster on a par with Bernie Madoff. For 13 years, Fox News, the political military establishment, and millions of Fox News viewers were scammed. Kent Clizbe, applying his proprietary, holistic, contextual credibility assessment technique, revealed the fraud in minutes. How could millions of Fox viewers, including legions of former, retired, and current CIA officers, be unaware the network's leading CIA counterterrorism expert was a fraud? Isn't the CIA's job to vet people, to be sure they are who they say they are? The answers will shock you. One man grasped the truth, and he pursued it to its conclusion." Okay, that was from Kent's website. Kent recently reached out to me regarding the con artist Chase Hughes, whose many lies and unethical behaviors I exposed in 2024 on my podcast. Kent had been interested in outing Chase as a fraud and then saw that I'd already done a lot of that work. So in this episode, we'll talk about Kent's work in outing Wayne Simmons, how Kent was introduced to Wayne, what it was that quickly tipped Kent off that Wayne was a fake, and how Kent's immediate sense of fakery relates to his own credibility assessment method, which Kent has written a book about. We'll talk about the pushback Kent got from powerful people in the government who knew and supported Wayne Simmons, and how his efforts to expose Wayne affected Kent's life. And we'll talk a bit about Chase Hughes, how Chase Hughes' claims of expertise in military and intel and psyops areas map over to Wayne Simmons' lies. Although if you really want to know about that, I recommend reading the expose on my site, behavior-podcast.com. Go to my site and search for Chase Hughes and look for the piece titled "The Many Lies of Chase Hughes." Kent is also a harsh critic of self-proclaimed behavior experts in general. He argues that systems for assigning meaning to nonverbal behavior, specific body and face movements, is worse than useless in law enforcement or espionage-related work, or other high-stakes real-world environments. In Kent's book, Holistic Contextual Credibility Assessment, a reality-based alternative to deception detection, he lays out an overview of the work of the well-known behavior researcher Paul Ekman, and makes the case that Ekman is an irresponsible liar and con artist. I have to say that I personally largely agree with Kent. Kent is, of course, not the first person to call Paul Ekman out for bad science and bad ideas. There are many fellow researchers who have harshly criticized his work. On this podcast, for example, I've talked to respected deception detection researcher Tim Levine about the weakness of Ekman's work. Kent's view of Ekman is just a lot more pessimistic than most, but I think he makes a great argument for why we should see Ekman as an extremely untrustworthy person, someone who the record shows is not really interested in the truth and much more interested in promoting himself as a genius. This episode will be only the first part of Kent and I's talk. This talk will focus on the frauds Wayne Simmons and Chase Hughes. The second episode that I'll air in a couple weeks or so will focus on nonverbal behavior and its role or its non-role in law enforcement and credibility assessment scenarios. Here's a little bit more about Kent's career from his website, KentClizbe.com. Kent served as a staff CIA case officer in the 1990s and as a contractor after 9/11. He has worked in various capacities in intelligence positions in Southeast Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. His specialty is counterterrorism and Islamic extremism. Kent has also worked counterintelligence, counterproliferation, counternarcotics, and other targets. In addition to extensive liaison work with foreign intel services, he has worked in the U.S. intel community in interagency, intergovernmental intelligence operations since 9/11. He was awarded the Intelligence Community SEAL Medallion, the highest civilian intelligence agency decoration for contractors, for his counter-terrorist operations in the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. His work in the Philippines was described in an article by Mark Bowden in the Atlantic Monthly in March 2007, the article being titled Jihadists in Paradise. Okay, here's the talk with Kent Clizbe. Hey, Kent, thanks for joining me. Sorry, I said that right as
Great
you're
to be
drinking.
with you today, Zach.
Sorry, I said that right as you were drinking coffee.
That's all right.
Good, off to a good start, but we'll keep going. That's kind of funny. Okay, so yeah, maybe we could start out with what made you, what got you reaching out to me, if you'd care to share that story.
So I've been following Chase Hughes for several years. I was introduced to him probably 4 or 5 years ago by some former associates of his. So they had given me a background on Chase Hughes, and I'd never heard of him, so I had started following him and did a little bit of due diligence and saw that he was not what he claimed, and that whatever it was he was selling was snake oil. I'm sort of one of my interests, professional interests, is exposing people like that. So I had been developing a dossier on him. It had fallen to the back of my things to do. I have other things going on, and I hadn't heard of him or seen anything from him in quite a while until late 2025, probably in the fall, early winter sometime. I saw an interview of him that he did on some national podcast. It was either Joe Rogan. Was he on Joe Rogan?
Yeah, but yeah, he was on Joe Rogan. He was also on some other big ones like Diary of a CEO, which is pretty popular.
Yeah,
some other ones.
actually I don't see any of those, but I saw a clip of a big one, and I'm pretty sure it's Joe Rogan. But that's when it suddenly hit me. What in the hell? I thought this dude was gone.
Yeah.
I thought he faded away, and here he is showing up on this very high profile media. So I went back and started, re-energized my Chase Hughes project. And in the course of that, I did a couple searches. Is anybody else looking at Chase Hughes? And boom, you showed up. Zachary Elwood, Poker Tell guy, has I
got my own dossier.
Yeah, had a fantastic article on your Substack or your website. And as I read that article, I was like, man, this guy has done way more than I have. Your dossier, your background, your analysis of Chase Hughes was extensive. And that's when I reached out to you to said, just offer my let you know that there's a kindred soul out here who's also offended by the Chase Hughes scam, and
Yeah.
wanted to see if we could somehow collaborate.
Yeah. as I told you and other people, it's like we need more people talking about it because he's continuing to peak in the popularity, which is kind of amazing. Amazing what he's been able to do in that regard. But yeah, another funny thing too, when you reached out to me via LinkedIn last like a month ago, and I had missed your message, and then I randomly, unrelated, stumbled across your work because I was doing some research on micro expressions and Paul Ekman's work the other day and saw your critiques of him. So it was kind of funny that we ended up connecting because I was reaching out to you and you were reaching out to me, which is
Totally
so
independent of each other, coincidentally reaching out to each other at the same time. Yeah,
yeah.
there's some kind of karma or something there. It was meant to be.
Yeah, and maybe we could, I mean, we could talk about Chase for a long time, but we'll leave that aside for now. But I wanted to ask you about your work outing Wayne Simmons. That is just a very interesting case, and I had not somehow I had not heard about that at all when when I looked into what you had done. I think was it a New York Times or some article about you exposing him or helping expose him?
Yeah. There was a front page on the New York Times Sunday magazine
Hmm.
story, extensive, went into great depth of.
That's great.
I didn't like the headline. There's something like the operation to out a Fox News.
Yeah, I didn't like that headline either. I was like, "What? That is not at all like." It made it sound like there was something, underhanded going on. It's like that. I didn't like that headline
Exactly.
either. Yeah, but
So I worked really closely with the guy that wrote the article, and the guy that wrote the article totally understood. And if you read the article, it's not an operation to out
right,
a Fox News commentator. It was a
expose a liar and a
exposure
con
of a
artist.
fraud.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it turns out that the guys that write the headline are totally separate from the guys that write the article. But
right.
anyway, yeah,
I've had that experience too. Yeah, I was wondering. Yeah, maybe we could. I mean, there's so much to say about just about the Wayne Simmons thing too. We could spend a long time with that, but I am wondering. I mean, people should definitely read that article and look into that. It's a very interesting story. But I wanted to ask you about that. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you fairly quickly what instincts you had about how he was likely a fraud and how quickly you knew that and what those circumstances were.
yeah. So I think really the most important takeaway from that the operation that I ran, if you want to call it that, to expose Simmons as a fraud was the fact that this guy was on Fox News, seen around the world for 13 years, and he was touted as Fox News's CIA counterterrorism, Islamic extremism expert. CIA offices at that time during the global war on terror all had big screen TVs that were on all the time. And many times, kind of depending on the politics of the management, but at that time, Fox News was probably predominantly the choice for running 24/7 on these TVs. And in CIA headquarters, there's Fox News is on everywhere. See the counterterrorism center everywhere, it's on. 13 years, this guy was blatantly in your face. It's not like he's hiding, sneaking around in the backyards, whispering in people's ears, "Hey, I'm a CIA guy. Let me give you a secret." He was in your face. Fox News, day after day after day, 13 years. CIA people saw him all over the world. Not a peep. Nobody ever said a word. After he's arrested, many CIA people came to me and said, "Oh, yeah, I had questions about him from the beginning." Bottom line is, nobody said anything, nobody did anything except me. As soon as I met him, a mutual friend introduced us. I didn't have cable, didn't watch Fox News, don't watch Fox News, so never heard of him, never seen him. Our mutual friend said, "Hey, you guys are just alike, counterterrorism operators. You guys, you got to meet him. He is plugged in. He is a cool dude." Sure, let's have lunch.
Quick
Sat
question.
down.
Quick question,
Yep.
Kent. Did you have suspicions about him based on your read of the situation before you met him, or did your suspicions
No,
already? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I did no due diligence before meeting him.
Mhm.
I just took the word of uh, this mutual friend who now it's clear had no idea what he was talking about, and he was misrepresenting himself as well. I knew the mutual friend through at the time I was teaching, instructing, facilitating instructional designing in intelligence training for both civilian and military human intelligence. I knew him through a professional organization, intelligence educators, so International Association for Intelligence Education. I knew him through that. Had never met him, but assumed his. There's no reason that I needed to do due diligence on this guy, but I assumed his competence. Turned out he's totally incompetent, and he was a borderline fraud himself. He was a. Turns out he was an Air Force cop who was spinning him, trying to create a new career, spinning himself as an intel guy. But anyway, so he introduced me. At the time, I took his word for it. Yeah, my colleague, mutual friend says I should meet you. I didn't do due diligence on Wayne. All I knew was the sort of headline: Wayne Simmons, CIA counterterrorism expert. Been on Fox News for the last 13 years. So that was the setup when I sat down to have lunch with him.
So when you met him, you fairly quickly had a sense that the things were off based on what he talked
So
about and the
and
way he talked. Yeah.
as soon as we started talking, um, he there's I call it it's like when dogs sniff each other's butt. It's butt sniffing. When you're a CIA officer and you meet another CIA officer, there's sort of it's not standard, but you ask about assignments, you ask about training. When did you go through training? Where were you stationed? Did you know somebody that Joe who was stationed there the year before?
Right.
What's
Yeah, the language they use to describe the positions, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the context. It's what I ended up at the time. I had in my head my system of credibility assessment, but I had never. It was all implicit. I never
Instinctual.
explicitly
Yeah.
extracted it from my head and said, okay, here's how I do credibility assessment. I did extract it and make it explicit later. And now I can use that language is I had a gut feeling, and what your gut is based on contextual. It's the sum of your experiences in context.
Hmm. Hmm.
So my gut is totally useless in brain surgery. If I sat down with a brain surgeon or somebody pretending to be a brain surgeon and he starts babbling about, well, I was cutting into the hypothalamus the other day and the vagus nerve was blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, okay, sounds good to me
Right.
because I have no contextual expertise.
Hmm.
My contextual expertise was totally wrapped around Wayne Simmons scam.
Hmm. Hmm.
I have a gut for that context.
Hmm.
When I can smell a rat because of my gut, because of my
You know,
contextual competence.
the domain. It's like domain specific knowledge.
Domain specific, exactly. I call that context.
Yeah.
It's cultural, language, profession. So this guy had no clue. I was at the time formulating the explicit form of my credibility assessment
Hmm.
approach,
Hmm. Hmm.
and his case was just this. It was like a God-given case study of here you go, man. Apply your expertise here. So here, that's a long description of why I knew he was a fraud within 5 minutes. He had been, turns out who he fooled and who he scammed were military guys. He had a very high level network in the military. His sister was an undersecretary of defense. She was like Rumsfeld's admin guru. Evidently, she went everywhere Rumsfeld went, she went. She was assistant secretary of defense for admin or something like that. Simmons was a lifelong screw up. He'd been kicked out of the Navy in basic training. He had been arrested multiple times for DUIs. He had been he had some kind of record with dealing drugs. It appears to me, looking back at it now, his sister wanted to help him, and he may have spun a story to her that he was CIA, and she went to Rumsfeld and said, "Hey, my little brother Wayne, he's fallen on hard times, but he was a 30-year CIA guy, and he really could use some help." And that then comes the global war on terror, and Rumsfeld is his angel, is his top cover, and Rumsfeld was tied in with Fox News, and that just he had Rumsfeld was vouching for him, and everybody in the DOD in the military was terrified of Rumsfeld. If Rumsfeld said it, it's from God's mouth to Rumsfeld's ear. It's may as well be the word of God. So the military was terrified of Rumsfeld, and if he vouched for Simmons, then Simmons was what he said he was.
Right.
That's what I discovered as this went on.
Yeah.
So he was used to. So the reason I give you that background is he was used to conning military guys, and military guys have this have a misconception or a stereotype or a idea. They think they know what the CIA is and what CIA officers do, but they don't. They may as well. Their concept comes from watching movies, generally speaking. So Simmons was able to use his top cover from Rumsfeld with the military's misunderstanding of civilian intelligence and scam his way right through anything that the military touched. He was able to be the CIA guy in there. So I've been in the military. I also have military expertise. I have the contextual competence. So you can't scam me of military stuff either. But he was trying to scam me just like he scammed the military guys. And it was alarm bells go off within 5 minutes before they even brought my water in the restaurant. I knew this motherfucker is trying to play me for a fool.
Yeah.
And the only thing I don't have a temper, but the only thing that pisses me off is somebody trying to play me for a fool. He did, and that pissed me off. He didn't know it.
He played a lot of millions of people for a fool. Yeah. I want
They didn't know it.
I want to tie some of the things you said into the Chase Hughes stuff because there's a lot of overlap here. So, for example, I've had a couple people who were actually did work in military and intel kind of things reach out to me and say they or people they knew had encountered Chase Hughes at events and tried to talk about like the alleged experience, military government experience that Chase Hughes claims to have had, and intel or interrogations or psyops or whatever the various things that he claims to have had, and it was very clear like their bullshit meters immediately went off too, where they're like, this guy didn't talk about it in any sort of way that made sense. Their bullshit meters went off. Then you also have the aspect of Chase, claiming that he has some of these books and things on his site and things he talks about where he's like, these are top secret military secrets that I'm sharing, this kind of Jason Bourne kind of stuff. And it's like, sort of like you said with Wayne Simmons, it's like, if these were, really top secret things that required a lot of clearance to have, like, would he can just hand these out on his site or give them to people and there's no problem? Like, that alone is a sign that something's off, because like the military is not just going to let somebody like share all these alleged top secret things, which kind of corresponds to what you were saying about Wayne Simmons over 15 years claiming to be this, like, into all this espionage stuff, but like nobody talks about him, or and he's talking about these things openly. So just to say, there can be these various clues, and then you also have, I think there's also the fact that this kind of, the espionage, CIA type of things kind of lend themselves to bullshitters, because it's kind of a perfect cover where people can say like, oh, of course you can't find any evidence of me doing that. I was so, it's undercover stuff. It's plausible deniability stuff, which is what, Wayne Simmons did. It's also what Chase Hughes, I haven't heard him do it recently, but it's also what I see a lot of his fans say. They'll be like, oh, he was just so deep undercover, nobody knows about the stuff he's done. I'm like, okay, yeah, right.
That is exactly Simmons' approach as well. And
right. Even when he got arrested and such, yeah.
Say again?
Even when he got arrested and afterwards, he was trying to say like, oh, and he never went back from his story, because he was like, no, I was just doing such top secret stuff and nobody knew what I was doing. Nobody can talk about it, blah, blah, blah,
Except, absolutely. He till today, I haven't seen anything from him in a while, but even while he was in prison and when he got out of prison, same thing is I'm on a quest to exonerate myself. I am who I said I was. That's the last I heard from him.
Yeah.
Except I ran an operation with my my buddy. He was an old boss of mine in the CIA. He was retired at the time. He's passed away since. But he was a real 30-year veteran. Had done everything in the agency. Been everywhere. Manager level, highest kind of manager level, and I convinced him that Simmons was fake. He was a Fox News watcher, and he as a veteran CIA officer accepted Simmons because there are many compartmented operations that not everybody knows about, and that's what my friend Jim assumed is, it doesn't sound right, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Fox News has to be vetting their people. This is his thinking.
Right.
Fox News has to be vetting their people. They wouldn't let a fake on. And I knew pretty much everything, but not everything. And maybe he was in one of those compartmented operations. So when I first started doing my vetting of Simmons and reaching out to my network of former CIA officers, I talked to him, and it took a little convincing. I had to present it. He wouldn't just say, "Oh yeah, your gut told you he was fake." I had already built a dossier that showed convincingly that Simmons was a fake. So I got him onto my side, and I was in touch with Simmons on Facebook, and Simmons would chat every now and then. He didn't know I was gathering details, and I suggested that he meet a fellow CIA officer, my friend Jim. Yeah, sure, yeah, he's Simmons was happy to network. So I put those two together, and then Jim and I came up with an approach. In effect, it was an operation. Mm-hmm. It was an operational approach. I did the turnover, and then I sat back and I was kind of like good cop, bad cop. Jim established a relationship with him, started talking, and then he started asking very specific vetting questions. The best one is every CIA officer has an employee identification number. If you are an employee, you have an EIN. It doesn't matter what your status is, what your cover is. It doesn't matter if you're deep, dark, undercover, triple secret, or you're a knock, you're overt, you're covert. You have an EIN. That is your agency identifier, and everybody knows it off the top of their head. So Jim started asking him things like that. Okay, Wayne, what's your EIN? Who was you were a knock? Who was you not there? There's a trade craft of running knocks. Every knock will have an inside officer handler who takes care of his admin stuff, meets him occasionally. They swap receipts or advances or whatever. What's your EIN? Who were your handling officers through your 30-year career? You know you're handling officers. They are your lifeline to the bureaucracy, to your career. You know, everything. There's all the admin issues. Your pay, your advances, your expenses, your retirement funding. All of those things come up all the time, and you're dealing with them as a knock through your handling officer. Jim starts asking him these questions, and very quickly it got uh, uh, aggressive, and finally Simmons, became very defensive, and this is all on Facebook chat, so we have the transcript. Simmons gets defensive and says, "Oh, you don't trust me. I am who I said I am." Blah blah blah. They come back the next time, and maybe a day or two later, Simmons had time to sleep on it, and Jim tells him, "Hey, Wayne, you're not CIA, and you never were. It's very obvious." And Wayne in chat says, "All right, yeah, I admit it. I will never again present myself as a CIA officer. You were right." And Jim said, "Okay, well, you need to make a public announcement or something like that." And at the time, I was writing an article to go out to expose him, and that was the final piece that I needed. I have a transcript of his admission.
Yeah, you
I
got
put
the
that
confession.
in there.
Yeah.
Confession. Put it in the article, sent it to Simmons, and said, "Simmons, I'm gonna publish this as soon as possible. Give you a chance to respond." And his response was, "This is bullshit. I never said any such thing. If I did, I retract it. I was a 30-year knock, and you're gonna pay for it, Clizbe." A threat. And he followed through on that threat. He did have a very, and he still has. He has a high level network of military. It's pretty much all military. There's one CIA officer a woman who's been totally on his side, just unbelievably. But the rest are retired admirals, retired generals, 4 or 5 stars, the highest level military brass. And he was connected throughout the media. So when he said, you'll hear my response." So his buddy, the one that introduced us, the next day published an article in an online military special forces military soft rep. It was back then. It was widely read, and I don't know if it's still read, but article denouncing the attacks on Wayne Simmons, and I don't think he mentioned me by name, but it was clear exactly who he was talking about. And then when I tried to place that article exposing him, no one would accept it. None of the usual websites that I had published on would accept it. So he did use his military contacts to shut it all up.
Right. And he and maybe you could talk briefly about, I mean, did he make your life harder? How hard was it for you? Did you suffer much, or did you just kind of like, were you thinking like, well, eventually the truth's going to come out? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that process until he got in trouble eventually.
Well, after that, that I was pretty much blackballed. I was not able to place any more articles uh, until I don't know if it was a year, maybe a year and a half before he spread the word that I was, harassing him or whatever, or that there was an operation to denigrate him, and he was and his great reputation. I want to say it was a year, maybe more, before the FBI contacted me, and I shared my dossier on Simmons with them, and he was arrested probably within several months after that. But in that time, I was unable to place any articles anywhere. I was the real deal. I was a real CIA counterterrorism expert. I've done the operations. I've been all around the world. Islamic extremism, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and instead of and there's many other people like me as well who lost opportunities because of Simmons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not that he was bad mouthing them specifically, but he was filling a slot that could have been filled by a real person.
Right.
But yeah, he blackballed me. Him and his military buddies blackballed me, and I was unable to publish anything, and nobody wanted anything to do with me until he was arrested, and that was sort of my vindication.
Yeah.
And then when that New York Times article came out, then it was everybody knows.
Did you start getting any media invites when you got vindicated? Did you appear on any shows?
Got contacts from people from media who never would have been in touch with me before. My previous places that I had, websites that I had wrote for, none of them called up and said, "Oh, hey, sorry about that. Can you give us something new?" No, that didn't happen. But it did open up a whole nother channel of, that the New York Times article ended up opening eyes of, say, producers of, like, I think that they did a couple podcasts. There may have been some kind of, I don't know if like Discovery Channel or somebody did something on it. They did do a couple of shows on an operation I did in the Philippines, so I'm getting kind of confused. I confuse the two. I don't know what but it did open up a lot of publicity for my skills.
Yeah, it seems like you could write a whole book just about the outing of that person, and that whole story is so interesting, and just talking about, maybe you could work Chase Hughes in there too if you do. I mean, I still think you should. I still think you should do your own expose of Chase Hughes because we just need more people talking about these people. I mean, the thing I've told you and other people is, like, a lot of people think, like, oh, I did the work, other people don't have to do it. But it's like, I get people reaching out to me, Chase Hughes fans, that are like, you're just a bitter person lying about Chase Hughes. If it was really a story, you'd have more, like, journalists and, people with experience covering it, talking about it. So just to say, I think the more the merrier, because I think there's a lot of people that, it's kind of like this assumption thing you were talking about with Wayne Simmons, where it's like people will say to me, and publicly on these Reddit threads, they'll be like, well, if Chase Hughes was really such a fraud, you wouldn't have, like, Joe Rogan promoting him, you wouldn't have Diary of a CEO guy, you wouldn't have Dr. Phil, you wouldn't have these guys who work on this behavior panel show, wouldn't work with him. And I'm like, well, it's clearly wrong, because he's clearly a fraud and a serial liar. So you have to examine your assumptions about what's going on there, because your assumptions are leading you way astray.
Yeah, I mean, people don't want to admit that they have been played for fools, that they have been scammed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many case studies like this, and Simmons is a great one because the exact same responses when I expose Simmons is same thing. People don't want to believe it; they're bought into it. Bernie Madoff,
Yeah.
that's billions of dollars. He was
Perfect example.
scamming. These
Yeah.
Chase Hughes is small fry.
Yeah.
Simmons is small fry.
Yeah.
Bernie Madoff was billions of dollars, and people didn't want to hear it. It's oh yeah, he can beat the market consistently. No freaking way.
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever put their money in a bank account or who's ever bought a share of stock knows nobody can consistently create that kind of return. But people, especially those who were in on it, who were getting their paper profits.
Right.
See, people who are somehow invested.
Yeah, they're invested financially or emotionally or something. It's like you believe or you have money.
Ethnically too.
Yeah.
The Ponzi schemes are almost. They started out at the Ponzi was an ethnic Italian, and he preyed on the Italian immigrant community. Madoff was an ethnic Jew. He preyed on the Jewish community. He was a huge donor to all kinds of Jewish causes.
It's like he's one of us. He won't, it increases the loyalty aspect. I mean, we see this with the political polarization aspects where people are more likely to believe people who they see as like on their side on for any cause or goal. Yeah.
And once they're invested emotionally or financially, it's very, very difficult to bring people around to the truth. So it's a long way of saying, confirming what you're saying is with Hughes is that these people who are bought into the cult, whether financially or emotionally, don't want to be told. They don't not just told, they cannot process it intellectually or emotionally. I mean, there's back in the I guess 70s and 80s, there was a whole industry of decultifying or I forget what they call it. They have a word for it.
Yeah.
Deprogramming. Yeah. Deprogramming, which is there's these different cults back then, and there's cults now the same way, but maybe they've made it illegal to kidnap your kid and deprogram him, but you don't hear about it anymore. But they used to be a big industry of kidnapping usually young adults who had been recruited into cults and deprogramming them. And that deprogramming process was long and arduous and not always successful. In effect, they put him in prison. They put him lock him up in a hotel closet or something and separate them from their cult experience. It's the same thing with Hughes or Simmons or Madoff or Ekman, acolytes. They're so invested emotionally, financially, intellectually, they cannot see reality. I give up. I never even try to deprogram someone. I see my role. I'm really good at vetting, uncovering the truth, and laying it out there for people to see. I cannot change someone's mind. I don't think. If they see the truth and they decide to change their mind, fantastic.
Yeah.
But
it's hard.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I might be up for starting a new deprogramming service.
Well, I don't know if you know, but Chase Hughes claims to be an expert cult deprogrammer too. That's one of the many things he claims he's.
You are kidding me.
No, that's one of the things. There's a Reddit thread
joke.
There's a Reddit thread about him being an expert cult deprogrammer, and people are like, "Is he really?" And it's just he's claimed to be an expert in literally everything psychology related. It's so funny,
Pitiful.
Yeah. That was a talk with ex-CIA officer Kent Clizbe, author of Holistic Contextual Credibility Assessment, a reality-based alternative to deception detection. I thought the book was good. It includes a lot of interesting stories from Kent's career and from the spycraft trade in general. You can learn more about Kent at his website, kentclizbe.com. In a future episode, I'll share the second part of this talk where Kent and I discuss nonverbal behavior and its non-importance, as Kent sees it, in determining veracity and credibility. This has been the People Who Read People podcast with me, Zach Elwood. You can learn more about this podcast at behavior-podcast.com. Thanks for listening. Music by Small Skies.